was excited to talk about Spider-Man today. We just talked about Spider-Man Far From Home. Last year, we talked about Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And this past week, news dropped that Marvel and Sony were not able to come to an agreement for continuing to make these movies together. So Sony was pulling its rights from Marvel, which was pretty big news considering Spider-Man in the Marvel universe had been set up to be a key figure for Marvel Phase 4 moving forward. Wanted to ask you, Dave, how are you feeling about this news?
Yeah, so definitely came as a bit of a surprise to most people, just given the timing of the drop on the eve of the D23 Expo. And well, I think it's certainly disappointing to any hardcore MCU fan. Certainly the Twitter trends of the day of the announcement speak to that. But I kind of have to applaud Sony for protecting their golden goose, because we know that that's the most valuable film rights that Sony owns, right? And they'll never sell them. They'd be stupid to. So they're never going to give them back to Marvel Studios and Disney now. So therefore, they have to just kind of keep their prize. And I just kind of am surprised that Disney and you don't know where the decision making with this is. Feige obviously is the consulting producer. He's in this past relationship of now 5 Spider-Man MCU entries, but I don't know if Feige decided that he certainly probably didn't, that Marvel wanted at least a 25% profit split, and there was talk that they offered 50-50, Disney would finance 50%, then get 50% of the profits. It's pretty self-explanatory. But they already have the merchandising rights to Spider-Man, and having Spider-Man in their movies benefits the rest of their MCU movies, right? So they get plenty out of the Spider-Man brand, and they can, So I just don't understand why they felt they needed to have a hard line with, well, if you don't give us more money, then we can't spare Kevin Feige. And there's some conflicting reports, and there's some finger pointing about who's to blame with the ultimatums, if there were any, But I'm just kind of surprised that Disney just wouldn't just run it back what they had before, because we know Sony's going to make their Sony universe. Venom 2's on the way. Morbius with Jared Leto comes out next summer. Sinister 6 could come up. Who knows, right? So we know that's happening. So why wouldn't Disney just try and keep it going? So I don't know. I'm pretty surprised, but I wouldn't blame Sony for this because they're just protecting their IP.
Yeah, if anything, this felt like Disney going for like a heat check in a sense and just totally bricking it. They've acquired so many properties within the last year or two, and it's like they almost were like, this is definitely going to work out for us in some way. And Sony's like, nah, and I don't even know what a fair price would be. I mean, Far From Home grossed over $1 billion.
It's the highest grossing Sony movie ever.
So it's like, how do they even properly value something like that or get value back? And they can't, which is why they can't move it. And good for them on not. And they've also created a Spider-Man film in the past now that have received critical acclaim.
Right.
So it's not like Sony can't make a good Spider-Man movie, but I think everybody who's been invested in the Marvel universe is invested in this Tom Holland Peter Parker and wants to see him back. I honestly don't even believe that negotiations are dead, like people have said, that this is how it's going to end up. I think they'll end up figuring something out. But
I think an underrepresented part of this that I think a lot of MCU heads are ignoring is that from the Phase 4 announcements that we got at San Diego Comic-Con, we know that there's no plans for a Spider-Man film. And obviously that's because the deal was up and nothing was dated for that reason. But 2020 and 2021 are all filled with MCU movies. And 2022, we just learned at D23 that one of those is in fact Black Panther 2, as we expected. We assume the other two are Captain Marvel 2 and Guardians 3. So that leaves 3 years without a spot for Marvel to slot in a Spider-Man film in their universe. And that just seems like too long of a wait for Sony, because this is Sony's big thing, right? And we know Homecoming and Far From Home, that was a 2-year gap, and Holland was popping up in the other stuff too. So it is, despite what we thought coming out of Far From Home and Endgame, that Peter Parker, he's the new face of the MCU, the new Stark, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
We never saw any concrete plans of that because the deal was up. And frankly, I'm actually kind of looking forward to what Sony could do with it, just because these two Spider-Man movies, especially Far From Home, have felt more like MCU films than Spider-Man films. And maybe we can kind of get back to the essence of Spider-Man in New York City fighting these lower level villains. I'm not sure, but you're right though. I doubt this is the last news we'll hear. I'm sure something will happen eventually, but in the meantime, definitely not the shakeup that Disney wanted.